Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this month's Expertise in Business webinar series. I'm Eric Hobbs, CEO of Technology Associates, and I'll be acting as the moderator for today's session. Just a couple of quick housekeeping items to get out of the way before we begin. If you have questions during the presentation, please type them into your GoToWebinar panel, and I will get those together and over to Stan, our presenter. We have set aside time for questions at the end, so if we don't answer your question right away, I may be saving it up for the session at the end. So I'm really excited to have Stan Kimmer with us. He's the founder of Total Engagement Consulting by Kimmer, and he's going to talk to us about employee career management and skills development. So, obviously people costs are of course a huge investment for any employer, but perhaps even more importantly, they are who make our business work, or conversely not work. So we're looking forward to sharing what Stan has to say on leveraging that investment and making it work and productive and work harder for all of our businesses. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Stan.
Well, thank you very much, Eric, and I'm really delighted to be doing this webinar, and I welcome everybody to it. Hopefully, if you're in the Eastern time zone, you might be eating your lunch while we're going through this, and I hope you can enjoy that as well as the presentation. Again, it's called Invest in Your People, Employee Career Management and Skills Development is the title of this webinar. Just a little bit more about me. I started Total Engagement Consulting after a 31-year career at IBM, and I worked in almost every function: sales, marketing, finance, human resources, diversity. And when I retired and decided to have an encore career and start my own consulting practice, I said to myself, I can do the things that I was really the most passionate about while at IBM, the things that I enjoyed most. And those areas were diversity and career development. So where we're going today is I'm going to talk a little bit about the business case and the need for career planning and career development of your people. I'm going to talk about some basic career development principles, the balanced career development cycle, where employees should be encouraged to look at developing skills in today's job as well as looking to the future. The point that each employee indeed owns their own career. And then looking at the specialist and generalist dynamic. What does that mean, and how does someone determine where they best fit? I'm going to share a methodology that I roll out to clients of mine called career mapping. And then I'm also going to talk about a few other career development tenets, like how to analyze your next position, and also introduce an introduction to mentoring. And then I'll have a summary, and we should end by about 12:45. Leaving plenty of time for questions and answers. You can actually listen to this presentation through two lenses. One is the lens as an HR professional or business owner to say, how can I develop my people and really get them the most engaged to do the best work for me? But you can also look at through the lens of your own individual career development and maybe apply some of these principles to your own life and your own career growth. So do wear both hats as you listen to this presentation. So the initial premise is that full utilization and retention of human resources should be probably one of the most, if not the most, strategic area that companies need to focus on. Two reasons. First of all, for most companies, your people costs are your largest expenditure or investment. So it only makes sense that you want to leverage where you're investing most of your money in running your business. And second, in the increasing commoditization of systems and processes, when now almost anybody can get access to the same tools and the same processes, what can be your major differentiator? And often it's going to be your people and the creativity they bring to the workplace, or the excellent client service that they deliver. So you're going to win over competition, by having the best and the brightest people who are giving their best. Rich Slentz from Extraordinary Incorporated, who also consults in this area, I think this might be the title of his book, or he talks about this a lot, that your employees have quit, they just haven't left. That a lot of people are sitting in their jobs, going through the motions, doing the minimum, collecting their paycheck, and not giving their all. But if you can engage your employees, for engaged employees that show a high level of engagement, like on engagement surveys, there's 27% less absenteeism, 62% less accidents, 12% higher customer satisfaction, and engaged teams deliver higher productivity and higher profitability. It just makes sense that if people are engaged and working, at their very peak, they're going to contribute more to your company.
And Stan, when we did the run through this, I mean, obviously this hits home, particularly based on what we do, but we find this so often it's ignored. I think a lot of people think, well, I'm paying the guy anyhow, so it's okay if I don't get 100% of his efforts. But the other side of that is 12 to 18% productivity and profit gains just by having engaged people. So that's right to the bottom line.
You're right, yes, and that's what's it's kind of puzzling. That sometimes business executives focus on inventory turns and managing excess cash, and they spend all this effort on managing buildings and plant and equipment, and don't focus on their biggest investment, which is people. And then there's several surveys that are out there. These are older ones, and I'll also talk about some newer ones in a few charts. But if you look at like HR professionals, they talk about that one of the top focuses is increased focus on leadership and talent development. And the Society of Human Resource Management, HR magazine, talks about care and feeding of high potential employees, that making learning and advancement seem never ending is one of the tactics for engaging people. And at the same time, more than half of U.S. employees are dissatisfied with their jobs, and many plan on looking for a new job and leaving. And what's very interesting is it's not going to be your mediocre and poor performers that decide they're going to leave. Often it's your top performers who feel they're not getting ahead or they're not growing, that they're the ones that other companies will try to steal from you. It's your good employees who are at risk of leaving. And a new term now in the HR industry is emotional attrition, that people maybe haven't left physically, but emotionally and mentally they've left their jobs. Employee satisfaction reached a peak in 2009. It's been dropping every year. HR professionals state that the biggest challenge is retaining and rewarding the best employees. Recent articles.
Stan, I've got a question here.
Yes.
On that last slide. The workplace satisfaction dropping since 2009. Does that have anything to do with when different kind of generational waves come into the workforce?
I think that's a minor part of it. And we can talk about it a little bit later. Is the younger generation sometimes have older managers that feel that they have to work hard and be quiet and not listen to for several years. But I think what's happened is that with the recession that happened around 2008 and 2009, that people felt, I think a lot of employers felt, that because our people can't go anywhere else, because it's going to be hard to find a job, we can kind of not treat them as well. And
gotcha.
I think that was the largest factor. And then recent articles, and now now the economy is improving. Worker confidence grows, and the quit rate is now higher since 2008 in terms of number of people leaving their jobs, and the labor turnover rate is now back to the pre-recession levels. And the study finds that 71% of people in the labor force are actively seeking a new job or open to a new job. So, how do you keep your key talent from leaving and staying? And one of the key ways is to provide them robust skills and career development. Often it's not about the money. It's not about, hey, I'll just pay you more and have you stay here. It's about, do I really care enough about you as an employee that I'm helping you grow and mature in your career? And then Tom Peters in Search of Excellence, one of the nation's leading business consultants, said if talent management isn't number one or number two item on your board agenda, your chairperson needs to be fired. That talent management is simply that important. So, in addition to the verbal business case, you can also calculate a financial business case. And often The CEO will want the HR team to bring forward a business case using dollars and cents in terms of, is it worth investing in employee development? If you assume a company with 500 employees and a $50,000 annual salary, and you can just substitute your number of employees and your average salary and use what percentages you want, and you can do the same algorithm, that if engaging employees in career development will make them just 2% more productive, you can calculate number of employees by the salary times 2%. That's $500,000 in productivity gain. Maybe that means that people are working harder and more dedicated. You can, maybe not hire as many people. But more importantly is engaging employees and keeping them from attriting. That if you can just keep 2% of your workforce from departing because they are now engaged in robust career development at your company, and you assume that the cost is 75% of salary to recruit and train and onboard a new employee, and this is a conservative estimate. Industry says it's between 75% and 1.5 times annual salary. Again, just 2% times the number of people times the salary times 75% can be a $375,000 savings in attrition. And then you have other soft benefits. You have higher employee morale. Word gets around. Oh, you want to go work at this company. They really do help you develop your career. They're interested in you growing. And that actually helps recruit new talent.
And Stan, the thing on that slide also is it the soft detriments, because even if you've got low attrition, and you've got a bunch of C players on your staff that probably can't move anywhere else. Yes, you could gain efficiencies, but what you're not taking into consideration is all the loss that you're taking just because they damage that client relationship, being non-engaged staff members.
And very good point. Yes, you're absolutely right with that. And then let's talk about some of the principles of career development. And this is a chart where most large companies have an annual employee development planning cycle where an employee sits down with their manager like once a year and looks at where they're going with their career or their job development. And most companies are very good with focusing on the left-hand side of this chart, which is what are the 8 or 10 requisite skills for the job you're doing today? What 2 or 3 are you the weakest in? Put together an education plan to take some online classes or courses or read books or do some on-the-job assignments to build those skills. Then you demonstrate the new skills on the job, and then the next year you do it again looking at the next 2 lowest skills. But at the same time, employees need to be encouraged to say, based upon the skills I built in the past and based upon the skills I am building now, what are career options 3 or 5 or 10 years down the road? And how do I prepare for that next position and more responsibility? And so employees should really have a balanced development plan where they're looking at continuing to improve in today's job, but also looking at the future. One thing that employees also need to be encouraged to do is to ask themselves questions about their career. And also, I'll be reaching out to each of you, after this call and offering to send you my chart set if you would like it. So don't feel you have to quickly write all these down because I will make it available to everyone on the call. But employees have to realize that they actually have to take ownership of their career, that you as a business manager or a business owner or an HR person can provide tools and systems to help your employees, but ultimately they're the ones that know deep down inside, what they really want to do with their career. And here's a set of questions they can ask. What's really important to me in my job? Do I want higher pay, becoming an executive, intellectually stimulating work? Analyzing what do I really excel at? Do I enjoy being an expert of a certain function and being the go-to person on a function, or do I prefer to leave the details to others and be kind of a general manager? Some people like to move between jobs and be innovators. Some people like to feel comfortable working in a job that they're very familiar with. people have to ask, do I want to be a people manager or not? Do I like to manage people? And so these are the kind of questions that people should ask themselves so that they can determine where they want to go in their careers. And then another dynamic is to look at the specialist and the generalist. And a strong organization values both of these kinds of people. The specialist is a person who has a deep expertise in a specific area over time, like maybe the person who is in tax accounting for your company that knows every single nuance about taxation, or that deep HR expert who knows everything about benefits. They actually have a very narrow scope of their role, but they're recognized across the company as a go-to person in this area. The generalist is someone who often moves around various jobs, and they usually have a very good picture of how all the pieces in the company fit together. And they're really good in general management roles and strategic leadership roles. And they rely on the specialists if they need help on a specific skill. And a strong organization is going to have a really healthy mix of both of these kinds of people. One of the tools that I make available that I actually do as part of my consulting is something that I developed when I was at IBM and I had career oversight for IBM's 3,000-person sales operations team. And the team was a little bit demoralized because as a back office function, they often felt devalued and wondering what's next after this. And so I developed a concept where employees, do they have visibility to career paths and career progression of other successful people in your company? Do they understand how did these different people get to where they got to today? Can they see these examples and then connect the dots so they can learn from those examples in terms of planning their career? And are they encouraged to look at successful role models and think about the next one or two moves? So what I do within a company is I would collect 31-page career maps from successful professionals, and I usually ask for a diverse set as possible because some people don't want to become an executive. Success doesn't mean becoming a vice president or executive for all people. And I develop a map that shows the job progression over time, but very importantly, key skills that people built during different parts of their career. Because that's really the most important aspect, is not the name of the position that I held, but what are the key skills that I developed that are transportable and valuable in future positions. So this is a sample blank career map where people can start from scratch and fill in positions that they held and skills that they built. And I'm going to give you two examples. One example is my career map. I have an MBA in finance and accounting. They are starting at the bottom left. My first positions in IBM were finance and planning, and you see they are on the left of the left column. Pricing, financial analyst, business planning, and technical planning. And then you see there in the gray arrow, like key skills that I built that really helped me move forward. Business case development, financial analysis, C-suite presentation skills. I had to do a lot of financial presentations to senior management and helped me learn how to present. People management skills, because I had my first department manager job. Then in the middle of my career, I shifted into marketing and brand management and learned a whole nother set of skills. Client relationship skills, market planning, dealing with press and consultants, and creating field education to train employees on new products. And then I moved into general management roles, working as IBM's LGBT diversity manager, sales operations manager, director of sales operations for our consulting practice, and eventually president and lead consultant of my own firm. And I learned another whole set of skills. So my theme on the top left is broad functional experience with a major firm builds strong skills for starting a consulting practice. So what this really is sort of like a colorful resume on a chart instead of just all text, and it highlights those skills. And here's a professional who works in the pharmaceutical regulatory affairs profession. These are people who do a lot of the drug submission paperwork for the FDA. And sometimes career maps are a little bit interesting because not everybody goes like up and to the right. Sometimes people move back and forth through various roles in their career. And this shows that on the middle and the right-hand column that this woman basically progressed from going back and forth between staff roles, working on regulatory intelligence and education, and line management roles, managing the regulatory submission function. And she moved back and forth, staff to line, staff to line, staff to line, continuing to grow her geographic scope of responsibility to get to where she got to today.
Stan, is one of the uses of these charts kind of sharing with other employees that want to say, follow this person's path and be able to see clearly kind of the skills that are needed at each step?
Exactly. And what happens is people can use these maps multiple ways. They can say, okay, this is where I want to get to, and they can kind of go through a series of maps and look at the top right-hand bubble in terms of where the person ended up and see the various ways people got into their leadership roles. Another thing that people can do is they can look at the maps and look for people who had the first 2 or 3 jobs similar to theirs to get a vision for the various options they have. So in other words, people who started as a research tech, if you look at the bottom left-hand bubble, people, what you can do is you can find 5 or 6 maps of people who started as research technicians and see the different places that they went. And if you're starting your career as a research technician, it can show you the various options that you have. So there's
Gotcha.
different ways to use a series of maps. And then for a client, when I do prepare the package that gets rolled out in their company, the structure is there's a summary of career themes, and then I have career theme 1 with 3 or 4 maps. I expand career theme 1, and a career theme can be something like, in a pharmaceutical company, starting as a research scientist is a normal first step. And there might be 3 or 4 maps that say that. And then career theme 2 could be something like people who take stretch assignments and work outside their area and take risks tend to move ahead. Another career theme could be, people who work for a pharmaceutical distributor often can move into pharmaceutical regulatory affairs. So each theme then has 3 or 4 maps that illustrate that theme. And then I have instructions for employees in terms of how you can study these maps to help them build your own map and think about different possible career paths. And the value is that if people think about multiple paths, they don't get derailed as often. If you kind of have a theoretical career ladder in your mind that, hey, these are the 6 jobs I need to do to get to CFO, and then you don't get that next position, you kind of give up and say, well, I didn't get that one, so I'm off the map and now I have nothing else to do. But with this kind of approach, people can often think of 3 or 4 paths, so if one doesn't work out, they have other paths to pursue. And then for all my clients, I also include, some of the other materials there on the right, including a few of the things I'm going to show you next. So one tool that I offer, and this is going to be something that you can use for yourselves, each person on this call, is how to analyze the next position you're interviewing for. And sadly enough, many people make their job decisions based on emotional things. Most likely, they don't like their boss. You're in a job, you have one of those evil bosses, and then you say, I'm just going to go get the next thing that comes along, and you jump from one bad job to another. And actually, if you love your job and the only thing that's hurting you is your boss, you can just maybe sit there long enough and outlast them. So when they get promoted out, you get a new boss and you keep your good job. But, other people have reasons like, they don't like their office, they want to go work where all their friends work, their cafeteria has the world's worst food. There can be multiple kind of emotional reasons why people leave their jobs. But there should be an analytical way. Don't make it an emotional decision. Make it a thoughtful, analytical decision. And here's a tool that I developed. You list the job characteristics, like what's important to you in a job, like pay, opportunity for advancement, getting to work with cool people, having a great management team, work-life flexibility, etc. And then what you do is you rate how important each characteristic is for you, 1 being very little importance and 5 being extremely important. So you're kind of giving them a weighting. And then you rate each thing, like how is the pay in my current job? How is the opportunity for advancement in my current job? And give it a 1 for poor and 5 for excellent. And then you multiply the importance times the rating, and you do the math and add it up. And here's an example. When I was working in IBM sales operations, I considered becoming a professional clown. And that is me there in the picture. And I looked at, job characteristics, pay. On the top line there, pay is pretty important to me. I ranked it 4 out of 5. But the rating for clown is 1. Clowns do not make a lot of money. Opportunity for advancement is important. But again, this one's rated a 1 because there's no such thing like as vice president or general manager of clowns. If you go further down, allows for work-life flexibility. I rate it as moderately important. And being a clown has great flexibility. I can take what bookings I want and don't want and can really manage my time instead of having to report somewhere 8 to 5. And helping make the world a better place is a real good one. You're causing kids to smile and parents to be happy. So that gets a pretty high rating. And you do the math, and it was 119. And I also evaluated my current role as sales operations director at IBM, and that was like a 132. So, numerically, it makes sense to stay where I was. It didn't make sense to change to become a clown. And I actually use this tool, in mentoring people at IBM to help them figure out what their next move should be. And when they interviewed for like the next job, is it a good fit? I also had one person I was mentoring who was a programmer and making a lot of money and not very happy. And he just was dissatisfied with his work. And I had him go through this tool, and interestingly enough, helping make the world a better place was his highest rated thing. And he realized that maybe working as a social worker for half the pay would make him a lot happier, and that's what he did. He went to become a social worker, and he's extremely satisfied with his career because for him, helping make the world a better place was tantamount. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about, which is a very powerful tool in your own career development, and that you can also maybe do a program within your company, is mentoring. Mentoring is simply a pair of individuals working together to achieve specific objectives for skills, growth, and development. And it can be very structured, like we meet this time every month, or it can be informal and periodic. Hey, I'll call my mentor every so often when I need them. And usually the initiator is the mentee, the person getting mentored, but the mentor also gains from the relationship. And I'm also going to talk about having multiple mentors at the same time. Now, mentor is a very interesting word. People might ask, where did the word mentor come from? Mentor actually came from Greek mythology. In his old age, Mentor was a friend of the god Odysseus. And when Odysseus went to work and fight the Trojan War, he left his son's development in the care of his old friend, Mentor. And Mentor kind of helped, raise his son as a late teenager. Now, different kinds of mentoring. There's traditional mentoring. This is when, you basically have two people in a job. One is at a senior level, mentoring someone at a junior level in that same role. An example is, VP of sales, mentoring a new salesperson. Or a plant manager, mentoring the operations or manufacturing manager who might later want to become the plant manager. The second is peer mentoring. And this is finding someone who's basically in the same role or the same job as you, and you basically are in the same place, and you can share similar experiences and bounce ideas off one another. This could be like in a large company, it could be like the plant manager of a plant in North Carolina and the plant manager of a plant in Pennsylvania, and they get together and they share what's going on in their plants, or an HR manager in 2 different locations, or a controller of a small company getting together with a controller of another small company. And they can, mutually learn from each other. Another kind of new form of mentoring is called reverse mentoring, where traditionally the junior member actually mentors the senior person. And a good example of this is having a tech-savvy millennial help like a senior vice president who's older and a little bit afraid of technology to become more comfortable with it and use technology. And then, of course, the senior manager can give back to the millennial and kind of help teach them about the corporate culture and show them the ropes. A 6th kind of mentoring is just in time. And this is where you might have a repository, online in your company where you have people with various skills that say, I'm willing to mentor or help someone like with financial literacy or with becoming a new manager. And then someone who, needs that particular skill goes online, finds a mentor. It's sort of like online dating, online finding a mentor. Group mentoring is very effective when you want to have a senior leader and you want to have that person get more visibility to more junior people. And it might not, say it might not be a good use of his or her time, to have them mentor a lot of people one-on-one. So you can kind of have a roundtable mentoring where the senior leader maybe mentors and talks to 6 or 7 people at once. So it's low cost, high impact. And then finally, the 6th kind of mentoring is socialization. And this is where you're not really mentoring a person with around job skills, but you're mentoring new employees in terms of the culture of the company and showing them the ropes of the company. You're kind of getting them acclimated to their new home, in a sense, in terms of in your company or in that operating unit. And I always encourage people that you should have multiple mentors at the same time. Mentoring is just not a one-on, in fact, mentoring is some place where polygamy is allowed. You don't have to, you don't have to say, okay, I have one mentor and that's it. What you can do is choose multiple mentors. For example, you can have someone in your current position at a more senior level, mentoring you in how to become more effective in today's job. Then you can have somebody like, hey, this is a job I might want to go to in 5 years. I might think about switching careers from a financial person to become a marketing person. So, find somebody in marketing to mentor you in building marketing skills and getting ready for that job change. Then you might want to get somebody who's in your similar like situation, like you might be a single parent, struggling with how do I, raise a family and manage a demanding career at the same time. And you could find maybe a successful senior leader who's a single parent and pulling this off to kind of help you, with your own struggles. So mentoring creates value in many different ways within a company. First of all, it helps build organizational intelligence. You're having people teach other people things about, key skills about the organization, and it really helps with organizational memory. This is very useful, especially if you have some people who are looking to retire soon, and you want to have like a knowledge transfer of what they know to, say, younger up-and-coming people in your company. People connections. When people are engaged with others in the company, they build relationships and they're more likely to stay. And it's also a good way of fostering company values and making people feel part of the team. And finally, business impact. When you have, when mentoring is active with your company, people are becoming more effective. It helps drive innovation and productivity, increases their engagement. And so it's a fairly low cost, effective way of engaging people and making them more effective.
So as an organizational leader, Stan, I mean, and we run into this, and I think that listening to this for the second time really kind of hit home. As we bring on new employees, we try to do our very best to get them kind of in the fold. I'm assuming kind of what your suggestion is that I could kind of pick, one of our best guys and say, this is your buddy, your work buddy for a while. And while they may not work side by side, just, encourage a little more interaction between them. Is that what you're getting at?
Absolutely. In fact, that's the, if you go back to this chart, a lot of that is that's the socialization mentoring, which is really key. When I first came onto IBM, I had a big sister assigned to me, somebody who was in my role, who had been, in that branch office for 5 years, who was very well regarded, and she was like a person I could ask questions to, especially in those first few months when, I'm trying to get used to like being in my very first job. And so that kind of, assigning someone, as a big brother or big sister mentor to a new employee really does help with the onboarding. That's an excellent point. And then this book that I've used, and I also have a like a 45-minute presentation just on mentoring, and I go into some details on this. We're not going to do this today, but this book is organized, The Elements of Mentoring by W. Brad Johnson and Charles Ridley. It talks about excellent things mentors do. What are the activities that mentors do with their mentees? Traits and styles of mentors, because there are different ways of mentoring others, and it goes through various styles that you might have. It talks about arranging the relationship. And how do you set an agreement? It talks about how do you and the mentee, if you're the mentor, decide what do we want to accomplish? Let's set goals and make this structured. Knowing yourself as a mentor, what are some pitfalls that you might fall into? For example, you're not, as a mentor, you're not creating a mini-me, because your mentee is not the same as you, and you're not out there to kind of make a cookie cutter of yourself. You're really helping that person to become the best they can be, for the skills and personality they have. The book goes into when things go wrong. Sometimes, mentors just don't click. And that person, it just, that happens. Personalities sometimes don't mesh. And things could go wrong, and how do you quickly fix it or decide that this is not the best relationship and we should try to find something else? And then also welcoming change and saying goodbye. That, in mentoring, sometimes you get to the point where we've achieved everything we can achieve in this relationship. Now it's time to say goodbye, and let's celebrate. Go out for dinner together and say, it's been a great 2 years, and I look forward to just knowing you on a professional level, and you both move on to maybe new mentors. So some closing thoughts and a summary before we take questions is that offering a robust and meaningful career and skills development program is really one of the key ways to engage your people, make them feel valued in your enterprise, and having them stay. Because they can get the feeling that, I can grow here. I don't have to change jobs and jump ship if I can develop myself in this company. The career roadmap.
And one key there is the skills development of not what they're doing now, but what you want them to be doing or what they want to be doing to move forward.
Yeah,
is that right?
Yeah, both. A combination of both.
Gotcha.
Because with the balanced development plan, and of course most companies kind of err too far to the left of just all the skills in the current job, because you want them to continue to improve and contribute in the job they're doing today, especially if the next job might not open up for a year or two. The career road mapping methodology is one proven methodology that can be used to build a career development module for employees so they can study other people's successful careers and come up with options and possible paths for themselves. Then you can package that with other overall career guidance package concepts. Mentoring is one key tool where all parties involved and the organization can benefit. And then very importantly, Each employee needs to realize they own their careers. They're the ones that really need to drive where they're going, and they're the ones that know deep, deep inside what makes them tick and what they are looking for out of a job and a career. So yes, we should provide, as business owners and HR leaders, we should provide tools and processes and encouragement for our people, but they have to take ownership. So here's my contact information, and we'll be leaving this screen up for a while as we go through some questions. There's my website. I have a lot of materials about career development. I even have a 10-question quiz that you can take for your own company that asks you about skills and career development in your enterprise, and then it'll actually give you a grade, A through F, in terms of how well you're doing in terms of engaging your people in career development. So look for a button that says talent development or skills development quiz. And I also have a pretty active blog where I blog about all areas of my practice. There's my email address. I welcome any questions about this presentation, or if you want to set up a call on how I can help you. And there's my office and cell number. The office one is usually the best one. I actually don't use my cell phone too much, but that's also good when I'm traveling. So now I'll turn it over to Eric to see if he wants to ask some questions or if he's gathered some questions from you all.
Excellent. Thank you, Stan. That is good stuff, and a couple of things that I picked up on kind of second time through here. So yeah, we've got several questions. The first one is this. A lot of the things that you're describing are kind of ongoing items. And the question is there traditional annual review kind of a thing of the past, or how does that interact with what you're talking about here as an ongoing engagement?
Yeah, good question. And actually, this question, the answer is kind of both and. Annual reviews are still quite important because employees need to be, in most companies, especially larger companies, they do need to be evaluated on their results, a performance review, because you need to differentiate, what employees are really contributing, superbly versus those who are meeting the requirements of the job versus those who are, somewhat substandard, because you can use that to help determine promotions and also pay increase. When you have a team of 10 people and there are 2 that are really contributing, way beyond the others, they might deserve a bigger raise. And the annual performance review, allows managers to really evaluate the work of their employees. And oftentimes people talk about, the next steps in their career development. But managers should also meet periodically, maybe even once a quarter, to talk with an employee about, do you feel like you're developing your skills? Where do you want to go in your career? And kind of have an ongoing, continual discussion about career growth.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Okay, selfish question. A friend, i.e. me, just started doing monthly one-on-ones with all of his direct reports. I'm not quite sure I'm doing it right, and I guess, a lot of times the meetings are, hey, how are you? Anything I can do to help? No, great. You're happy here? Great, thanks. Can you give me maybe a couple of pointers that I can use to kind of shape up those monthly conversations and roll more into the career planning?
I would say that what you might want to do is think about having a more structured process and topics for each of those monthly meetings. And that also helps with, mentors. You just don't want to get together with mentees and say, okay, what do you want to talk about today? You might want to have like a prescribed, hey, here's 6 topics we're going to talk about in the next 6 months. And like the week before, the meeting with the employees, say this is going to be the main topic for this meeting. You can talk about other things, but maybe you can give them the career assessment questions and say, let's talk about these. And then you might want to say, hey, the next time, let's talk about things you see going on within this company that you think we can make more effective. Since you've been here and you see things through different eyes, do you have suggestions on how to improve things? Then maybe next talk to them about their own job satisfaction, and say, and give the person maybe the topic a week before the meeting so they can be thinking about it, and then you can have a structured discussion, about a particular topic about them in the workplace.
Awesome. All right, I was writing as fast as I could.
I want to commend you for meeting with of having a thoughtful way of, like, I'm going to sit down and talk to my employees once a month, because it can be so easy to get busy and just kind of forget about your people and not spend that one-on-one time. So I think that's a very good process of saying, hey, I want to at least spend quality time with each of my employees once a month.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you. Here's a question. So this is a question around startup, and at what point a startup should put kind of a formal career path development in place. And the reason is many of the future roles and career paths haven't really been established, so it's hard to kind of map that out. So do you have any guidance along those lines?
Yeah, I wish, I think some kind of entrepreneur think tank should hire me to do a career mapping module of successful startups, and kind of create a bunch of maps that can be shared across the industry. So that's a very good question. Thinking about startups, one thing that I'm going to say is that probably in the early days of a startup, you really need to look for more generalists than specialists, because when you only have 2 or 3 people, between all of you, you've got to do everything. You've got to do the finance, the HR, the product development, the marketing, and you can't say we're going to go and find the best benefits expert in the world, because usually a company has to get 200 or 300 people before they can have one full-time HR person just focus on benefits. So a startup is going to be looking more for generalists, and then also a startup probably might need to get some specialist on hire, hire someone for, an outsource HR to, a person that does HR for 10 little companies, or outsource their website if they can't afford to hire, an IT expert. And then as the company grows, to 5 or 6 people, you can start thinking about career paths. And also the important thing is, in a way, you can kind of do some informal career mapping. You can say, okay, if we're going to do this startup, we're going to hire 2 or 3 people, what skills do we need, right off the bat? And kind of make a list of the key skills. And then when you look at, bringing on your 1st or 2, partners or employees, you can focus on those skills and see if they have those skills and ask about those skills. So, in a startup, you probably need to be very thoughtful about the skills that you want to bring on board early.
So the next question is around career counseling, and the question is essentially, should it cause alarm bells, or should it be looked at negatively if you have somebody who's just happy doing what they're doing and doesn't really want to look forward in their career?
No, that's fine. There are people who said, my definition of career success is getting to this position and then staying in that for the next 20 years because I really love what I'm doing. And I have no desire to become a manager and all those headaches. I have no desire to increase my working hours. And for people like that, maybe getting extra levels of their job, getting more responsibility, getting higher pay is very low on their scale. And maybe enjoying my work, having work-life flexibility, doing something I'm familiar with that I know I'm good at instead of taking risks and trying something new is really what they really want to do. And so that should be welcomed, and that person should also be told, we're really glad you're here, and value them in the role that they're doing. And the important thing is, those employees that have kind of gotten to where they want to get to, value them for their work and encourage them to even become more effective and enjoy their work even more.
And we've seen people kind of phase in and out of that. I mean, we had because of what's going on in their lives, right? Maybe they have a young kid, and listen, for the next couple of years, I'm just happy doing what I'm doing, and then a couple of years later, boom, or we had somebody kind of go through a health problem, and in those type of life changes too.
That's exactly right. In fact, for one of my clients, I had a roadmap that I really considered exciting. It was a woman who went up, got promoted like every 2 years for like 8 years. And then she started a family. And she thought, well, she had 3 children, and while my kids are at home, I'm going to work part-time for a while and work in a full-time job. And she stayed in the same position for 8 years because her priority was raising her family. And then when all her kids were in school full-time, she went right up the ladder again and went boom, 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 all the way up to a vice president. So it kind of shows that sometimes people in their lives, modify, temporarily their career plans. And it was really cool to see that company welcomed that. They didn't say, you got to get promoted every 2 years. They were like, okay, you got promoted early in your career. We know where you are now. You're doing great work. It's fine for you to stay in this job for 8 years. And then when you're ready to start progressing again, you can progress. And that delivered it when that got presented to all the other employees in the company. They really felt good about working at that company.
Yeah, I can see that. So one last question here, and it's around kind of what you're talking about there with the acceleration of going along the career map and the progress that's being made, specifically as it relates to, maybe a younger employer or employee rather. So, I could bring somebody in, they're starting on the help desk, show them my career map. I don't want them to be thinking they're going to be CEO in a couple of months and be mad that they're not there. How do you balance that?
Yeah, well, yeah. First, yeah, because actually, I think the one thing is to realize that one of my consulting practices is my other area is diversity, and I consult a lot about generational diversity and generational training. Is that managers need to realize that the millennials who are now graduating from college and starting work have a different mindset than us baby boomers who started 35 years ago. When I came into the working world, kind of the theory was nose to the grindstone, earn your stripes, be quiet, and after 3 or 4 years, we'll start listening to you. That's not acceptable with the younger generation. For them, they want to be treated as adults, and they want to have a voice at the table when they come into the company. They have bright ideas to offer. Kind of like an old manager saying, just shut up and do your job for 3 years is not going to work. So, good managers realize that different people have to be managed different ways. So, you can share some career maps with a younger employee and help them realize that you're not going to become CEO in a year because you have all these various things that you need to learn and grow in. But at the same time, while you're in this entry-level position, we want you to share your ideas. Our door is always open. If you see a way for us to improve like a process, or you have a brilliant idea of how to reach a new market, tell us, and we'll value you for that. And I think, more important than, hey, I want to become CEO in a year, is I want a job where I'm valued, where I'm listened to, and where my thoughts count.
Outstanding. Awesome. Well, Stan, this has been super powerful. I've got several notes to myself on things that I need to change here. So speaking for myself, I'm really grateful that you came on and kind of shared this information with us. Audience, if we will be connecting you with Stan if you have any additional questions or want to see some of the information that's on his website or his forums, I'm sure he'd be happy to talk to you about that. We have our next webinar coming up next month is going to be a good one also on company valuations. So I encourage you to keep an eye open for your emails on that one. So once again, Stan Kimmer, I appreciate it and look forward to talking to you again soon.
And Eric, I thank you for the opportunity to do this. I'm really passionate and excited about this topic. And, just thank you for inviting me to be your speaker or presenter of the month. And I wish you the very best success in your business and the rest of your webinars.
All right. Thanks a lot, Stan. Goodbye, folks.